So guys, in today's video, I thought I'd keep it pretty basic in that we're just going to go over some of my week prior to deloading training and some exercises from lower body, upper body, and I'm just going to take you through each exercise and talk to you about what I'm thinking when I'm executing the movement. And these are all taken to 1 to around 0 RAR, so taken to as high a proximity to failure as I possibly can whilst maintaining good technique. And on some of these, I may even break technique. So I'm going to talk through why that maybe happens and give you some insights into that as well. Hopefully there's some good takeaways from this. I sometimes find when I watch kind of, I guess, put it this way, advanced bodybuilders train, and I get to hear their rationale and thoughts behind things, it gives me insights into my own training that I might be able to apply beyond the textbook, beyond the PubMed, beyond those sort of things. So hopefully I can give some of those to you today. Do let me know in the comments any feedback you have, if you like this style or not. I just didn't have an overriding topic that I wanted to talk about this time, and I thought, why not just talk a little bit about exercise execution? That might be the video title. I haven't even got a title yet. Cool, so the first movement I am doing here is a machine chest press. So I actually really like this one personally. So as you can see, I slide into it initially and have my arms set back. I find that a really comfortable way to get into the machine and then get a nice stretch and starting position. And then I'm just making sure to brace and make sure I've got a good base to press off. For this press movement, you're not getting too much from your legs in terms of like helping you stabilize or anything. So I'm not too worried about what they're doing. And I'm really focusing on bringing my arms as far back as possible whilst maintaining good positioning and maintaining tension that I'm feeling almost in a mind-muscle connection, where I'm feeling that stretch and tension kept on the chest and coming for a deep stretch as far as I can. Basically, I max out the machine, come for a pause at the bottom, and then I'm pushing through and arms coming together. And just making sure to control that whole portion, particularly the eccentric, to make sure I can keep pushing, because if you lose focus, you can quite quickly lose the ability to actually produce force in the best way possible. So now I'm doing I guess this is a D-handled hammer strength pull down, and I'm actually doing a little bit of a pull around based off CASM at N1, where I have my torso slightly rotated, so then I'm coming around my body ever so slightly for a little bit more of a stretch on my lats here. As you can see, I use kind of the seat support as supporting that kind of left side of me, and then my right leg is jutting out there as a bit more support as well. And then I come across my body somewhat, and I come to pull down through my elbow somewhat towards my hip. And you might see as I fatigue here, I think this right side, actually my form does start breaking down. You can see I lose a little bit of range of motion, not much. I would maybe discount that final rep. The other reps look pretty decent. But you can see here again, you can see my torso is slightly turned over. So I'm getting a little bit more of a stretch on the lat by turning into it. So my arm has to come across my body a little bit. And then I'm pulling down into the hip, as I mentioned, control the eccentric nicely, and then feeling the stretch. In terms of what division of the lat this is probably hitting the most, it's probably doing a pretty good job of hitting quite a lot of it. But because of the line of pull, I would say it's probably more low to mid lat versus that kind of upper thoracic lat, as it were, as they would be calling it over there. I've just found, because for me, I lack width, as you've probably heard me talk about so many times on this channel. If I can build the wings, the lats, should help me look a little bit less blocky on stage. So then I move on to this chest supported row. So because I'm in this pronated position, my elbows are coming a little bit flared out to my side. I'll be hitting a decent portion of upper back. And then I'll also, because I'm leaning back into it, I'm not like driving momentum through here, although I probably do towards the end. Again, this is something you'll see through these movements, is on my pulling, the kind of clear line between 0 RAR and failure is a little bit more murky versus pushing, where it's kind of like pushing. You know if you're breaking down form or you can't finish the rep really. Whereas these, because there's just, with pulling motions, it's just a little bit less black and white. You might see that my form changes a little bit in terms of the positioning I'm in. And basically I'm just recruiting other muscles to try and make it easier, or I'm slightly adjusting technique. It might not be as obvious on this row here, but for this one, again, I'm coming over the chest support for as big a stretch as possible. And then I'm pulling back through my elbows, and at the same time, keeping my stomach on the pad and arching to get extension of the back. and that will shorten the erectors a little bit more and get them involved a little bit more. And obviously I'll be hitting tons of like rhomboid traps, rear delts, all the kind of upper back musculature there as well, and making sure to really control that eccentric. So in this movement here, Bayesian Curl by Menna Henselmans. For a long time, I just did this kind of facing away D-handle curl, which some of you might call it. I didn't really lean into it. I have found I quite like the lean into it, but I mean, I don't have to think too hard about my bicep training. They seem to get a pump, even just from my pulling motions, to be honest. So by the time I come to train them at the end of my session, I maybe have a couple of sets. I actually had 4 working sets for the whole week at the moment. So as you can see, I'm letting the cable just kind of come behind me, and you can see my bicep lengthening, and basically it gets as long as it can. And if I kept to try and pull back, I'd have to then move at my shoulder joint more, and I'd just get more and more front delt involvement. And you might feel your front delt a little bit in these initially, but as you get the technique down, and it's not a novel stretch at all, that it could be on that front delt, you should feel it primarily in the biceps. And then as I come forward, I just lean into it a little bit to really shorten and get a squeeze on there, and really just to make sure the cable's not like just hitting my wrist completely. Then this is a tricep pushdown I really like. There's lots of ways you can do tricep pushdowns. This is at the moment my favorite way, where basically I come over the machine a little bit, and then I let my elbows drag back, and I want my elbows to basically maintain a higher position than my hands throughout as much of the movement. What you want to make sure not to do is shrug up at the shoulders and let that move. You want to keep that kind of shoulder and trap position stable, and then really push through the elbows. And it can be tempting as you're starting to kind of struggle and fail at the end to kind of move, break your position, or introduce more chest. And so you can see kind of that was my 0 RAR there. I'm pretty happy with how that was looking. I get a gnarly disruption in my triceps from that movement. Then we have my belt squat, Romanian deadlift, or straight leg deadlift, whatever you want to call it. I find personally I have to have quite a bit of a knee bend versus other people. They seem to be able to keep such a straight leg position on these. But the key for me on these is that my hips stay high and move back, and they're not moving down. And you can kind of tell if they're moving down, one, by looking at the hips and seeing if they move down. But secondarily to that, if they move down, typically there's excessive knee bend. And that knee bend tends to be accompanied with forward knee bend. So you're getting knee flexion, which ultimately you want like straight shins, if not actually your shins traveling even backwards a little bit. You can see initially my knees kind of travel back. They certainly aren't traveling forward throughout the motion. And I find the easiest way to keep that position is through a slow eccentric. I like 3 to 4 second eccentrics. I'm even like pausing for a moment at the bottom on these. And then in terms of chest, I'm just thinking like chest up, arch my lower back, come as low as I can, maintaining that big stretch on the hamstrings whilst not losing that lower back neutral position. So it's not rounding, or at least visually rounding, as you can see. And again, not letting anything else compensate here. And this was maybe 1 RAR there or thereabouts. You don't really want to really fail on a hip hinge deadlift pattern. It's kind of excruciating. Now, my form maybe takes a little bit of a hit on some of these, so this will be interesting. This is the belt squat. Again, I've got the heel raise on, which I think is really, really helpful. You want to sit nice and deep into these. You can get really deep on a belt squat when you have your setup right and you're in a good position to. And so I come as deep as I can, and I try and stay on my, like, not toes, but further forward, because it's very easy to shift the load all through your posterior chain if you're not careful. And this is super challenging, but because it's loaded through the hips, it's really nice because it's not so axial loading, or you're not loading the spine, and so the systemic fatigue cost is not as high. But I've had these in my program for like, I don't know, 6 months plus, a heck of a long time, and I've progressed them a heck of a lot. But I'm getting to that kind of point with them where the SFR is dropping off a little bit. They're just feeling a little bit janky in some ways. And also, don't know if you can see here, but this belt is like jerry-rigged in some ways. I've got my knee sleeves over the top of it to add extra padding because it digs into my hips like a mother effer, because the older belt that they had that was much more comfortable broke, and this new one just it's not suitable. You can't use it realistically unless you've got padding on there, because it will just dig into your quads. I'm actually doing a myo rep set here, or 1 breather, so I take 3 to 4 breaths and then I go again. And these are all in very close proximity to failure, because I basically just took it to 0, 1 RAR, and now I'm taking this to, again, 0, 1 RAR. And by the way, hands on like gripping there is just for like posture control and management and balance. You aren't trying to grip and pull yourself up. Hopefully that's obvious. If you find yourself doing that, check yourself, because yeah, you shouldn't be doing that. So yeah, you can see I'm pretty damn wrecked from that one. So then we've got the leg extension. If you aren't doing this on your leg extensions and you don't have a good leg extension, get on it. Yoga blocks, get them on Amazon. Probably get them on Amazon Prime. You can have them for your leg day tomorrow. Definitely invest in some, because I just find they're such a useful tool, especially because we're finding out more and more that like the lengthened, more stretched position that a muscle can get in seems to be more hypertrophic, and that's actually been shown in studies that have examined the leg extensions. I think it's just wise to use those yoga blocks to get more that more range of motion, and you can see here that they push me nicely back. I arguably could get even more range there, and you might have to move towards doing like a bodyweight sissy squat or something like that to get even more lengthened range. But the cool thing with this Strive machine, you may have seen me using it before, is I can bias the beginning portion of the range of motion. But the thing I wanted to talk about to you here is I'm really holding myself into the bench. Some people use a seatbelt here. I haven't found that personally necessary. And then I'm trying to control it all the way for a big stretch, get my legs traveling as far back as possible, and then pushing nicely through. And my kind of take home on these is you can generally push harder than you think. That the metabolites, the pump, will start accumulating early on, and you'll start burning in your quads, and you can keep going. So they're like, you might see that rep and think that's your last one. But then I know I have another one to eke out there, but after this one, I was absolutely done. There was no chance I was getting another rep. And then you've done a good set when you have to launch out. So here you're seeing some of my training from a weekend away, actually, in a different gym. And so I normally do a seated cable row, neutral grip. And so this was very, very similar, not quite the same. And I don't know the load and everything that I needed. And obviously I had to jerry rig by having plates down on the floor so I could get a full stretch on this movement, because that's really where I see a huge benefit on this, where I can get that huge stretch. And this is more hitting the thoracic lat because it's in that more horizontal position. I'm pulling more kind of up to my sides and with a neutral grip. So I'm kind of getting that through this. If you wanted to use that terminology, I know people are enjoying that. And of course I'm getting, like, my upper back is completely stretching over as well. And my rear delts are getting a big stretch, but I'm not getting them maybe as short. And that's partly because this is a length and partial set. So I'm just pulling to my knees. And I just find you can grind a little bit more with those, and I get a crazy stimulus across my back, and particularly my lats on those. This was a machine press. I can't remember what this was replacing. I think it was replacing that Cybex press that I started on, but this is in a higher rep range, so I didn't really know where I was going with this. It got me a gnarly stretch, so much so on my right side as I come down, I was almost cramping in my right pec. It's kind of a bit of a crampy sensation and pulley sensation that I get when I do dumbbell flies, because it just gets me such a crazy stretch. And I just was very cautious with that stretch on that side. And whenever you're getting into those big lengthened positions, you just really want to slow down, really control that, feel that stretch out, so you don't like pull something. That would be the last thing you want to do. This machine is okay. It doesn't converge like that Cybex one, the Eagle press I started on, so it doesn't feel quite as good, but it was pretty decent. And my chest was just like completely gassed here. And again, I'm just looking to like brace. And again, my legs, you can see my foot tapping. They're not really giving me much bracing. I'm just looking to brace in my core and come through and press through as best I can. So these are dips. So at my gym, I am doing dips, but I'm doing them assisted. So I just got less reps because I had no assistance here. And typically when I do dips, I would typically try and target the tricep. So I'd like let my legs come in front of me, and I'd really try and sit back into it. But I'd always find my chest would tend to dominate. So I was like, let's lean into that. Let's make sure I just train my chest. So with these, I'm actually purposefully not locking out. I'm purposely have my legs behind me and pushing my chest forward into it, leaning into it to get a really deep stretch on like the lower chest, or I guess, the lower chest. I'm not going to try and use the biomechanics terminology because I'm worried I'd end up with the wrong term in my head. So yeah, like just gnarly stretch. I'm basically in like a decline press position, as it were. So yeah, the stretch you can get on that is gnarly. Now I'm leg pressing, so I absolutely love this leg press machine. It's very similar to the one I have in Yorkies, with the foot plate with a slight bend. And actually the back position doesn't move. But I brought my yoga blocks with me because they're that valuable. I brought them with me to this different gym. And you can see they're supporting my lower back. And my hips do come up and round slightly, but my lower back is remaining like neutral in this position. And I'm not feeling any lower back fatigue. And I actually come down like as deep as I possibly can. I can't come any deeper on this machine, and I just get the gnarliest stretch across my quad. You can see my quads actually acting there. I get kind of, I think, knees to like armpits, and I think heels to like arsehole, essentially, and really, really controlling this. This actually had a bit more friction on it than my one at Yorkie, so the eccentric could be even more controlled than it would be, because it just challenged me that little bit less on the eccentric. But the concentric, therefore, was very, very challenging as well. And is there anything else to particularly say on this? Yes, so something worth mentioning is I do let my heel, you might see my right foot, because my right foot has a little bit less flexibility than my left. My guy came to spot me, and now you can't see, but I let my right heel come off the plate a little bit. I don't mind a little bit of heel elevation. That allows me to get that ROM, so long as I feel in control. It doesn't sacrifice any force production. It feels good. I'm all right with that. These little things, like ideally, lower backwards down the pad. You don't have hip rise. Ideally, you don't have any heel rise, but you haven't got like the perfect setup. So I think a little bit of leeway on those things is fine, so long as it feels productive. You kind of can produce lots of force. You feel strong and good. That was 0 RL. There was no chance I was getting it back up after that set. So then here's another set of me going through the same thing. You can see you can get killer depth on this. Something I do find to be helpful is you can see I'm holding myself in. I can't use, actually I think I tried to use them on that first set, my Versa grips, to grip me even more in there, because I have found when I grip myself so hard to like stay in position, I get like sore forearms. I don't think it's as bad. I think it was when you're like really in not the best. I think I was on a matrix leg press, and I was like really having to hold myself down in there because I'd like jerry-rigged it so badly. But when you're in a better leg press, it's probably not such a problem. But I do like using my Versa grips to grip into the machine and just keep myself like really solid. But on this one, obviously, whatever reason, the handles were in a really awkward position. I couldn't put my Versa grips over it. And again, on these, I'm just maintaining tempo, consistency. I'm not looking to take extra rest up at the top to allow myself to get more reps and take it as a Maya rep set or like a rest pause set or anything like that. I'm trying to take it continuous. I've tried doing Maya reps on leg press, and it doesn't work for me. I just get completely wrecked. I do like it to like a 3 or 4 RER even, and then I rest like a few breaths, and I'm like, I can get 1 or 2 reps and I'm at failure. It just completely screws me over. And I think that's just a consequence of being able to get such good range on it. If you've got a great leg press, you are in such a good position generally with like your quad training, because I think it's such a useful tool for a lot of people. So I think that's everything. That was all my training. Hopefully there was some insights in there to take home. If you have any particular questions about any of the training, you let me know. Again, if there are any particular videos you want to see, let me know, because then I can kind of get some topics together, accumulate those and put them together. When you're in your off season, of course, there's just like, it's ticking the boxes of like making sure to get enough sleep, stress recovery, stress management, meet your meals each and every day, go to the gym, get your training in, look to progressively overload over time. And as long as you're ticking those boxes, you're in a really good place. But if there's any specific topics you would like covered, anything from nutrition, lifestyle, to training, you let me know and I'll look to get those covered. But I thought it would just be cool to kind of talk through some of the training clips I got where, again, if you're looking for technique videos, a lot of technique videos people put out there, us included at one time, it's not using much load because you don't do that for technique videos, but actually seeing someone work with load and close proximity to failure is great to see in technique. And that hopefully helped you seeing my technique here. And again, the biggest thing I think on technique sometimes is like, you don't need perfect technique, and especially as you're getting close to failure, you kind of almost want technique to look like it's close to breaking down. If not, it maybe breaks down where safe. Like on pulling movements, if you shorten your range of motion a little bit, or you use a bit more momentum, or whatever it might be, you know then you failed, you've introduced other muscle groups, you can call the set there, and it hasn't screwed you over, whereas you wouldn't want to do that on like, I don't know, a squat or a deadlift pattern. Anyway, guys, I'm going to stop blabbing. I'm going to leave that there. Hopefully that's been useful or insightful in some way. As always, guys, if you want like technique reviews or anything like that, that is something we do at our coaching at Revive Strong. We want to make sure our clients are doing and exercising as we entail. If we're manipulating their training or advising them about that, we've got to make sure that if we're not there with them in the gym, we've got to see exercise videos. And so I will do this sort of thing where I'll look through someone's video. I'll make sure their proximity to failure is appropriate, the range of motion, tempo, consistency across the rep is safe, appropriate, and I'll ask for feedback from them as well to make sure that the exercise is doing what we want it to do. But guys, I'll leave this here and I'll catch you in the next one. Take care.